Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and this is episode number 74. Looking to open the door to your acting career through Self-Tape May 2021. Woo! Yeah! Pew, pew, pew. Explosions! 2021 Self-Tape May 2021 Self-Tape May. Oh my gosh, you guys are crushing it, and I'm just so inspired by Self-Tape May. Every day I open up Instagram, it's like getting a box of puppies because I'm just so excited by all of your self-tapes. You guys, so many people are doing Self-Tape May. It is so exciting. And I was on Clubhouse and there was another moderator and he was like a series regular on other shows and he was like, I'm doing Self-Tape May, and I started doing it and then I got all these auditions, and I just really think like once you start auditioning, I think it's just like the energy that brought all these auditions my way. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. When you say yes to the work says yes to you. Yes. So I'm so excited and so happy for all of you. Just a quick shout out to everyone who has completed. If you have completed your 16 tapes, 16 total tapes for the month of May, please go to www.audreyhelpsactorspodcast.com/selftapemay. I know you can remember it. audreyhelpsactorspodcast.com/selftapemay. And we have a little thing for you to fill out if you have completed the challenge. You're just going to write some information down so that way I can count you and I can go ahead and I'm going to post everyone who's completed once this is all over. Once you guys have finished the challenge and May is done, I'm going to post everyone who has completed the challenge on social media. So you get a little shout out, you get a little credit, you get a little, little love on the Instagram for having completed the challenge. I'm so excited for you if you have completed it, and if you are on the way, you can do it. Yes, you can. I'm so excited. Okay, so that's Self-Tape May. Congratulations. Keep going, those of you who are still doing it. And if you have completed it and you're still going, then yes, 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 I love it. Keep going. Okay, so today we have Kimberly Hardin. She is a casting director for many decades. She is incredible. And this, I have to say, this interview is maybe one of my favorite interviews. She is so great. And the information and the wisdom she is giving, you guys heard last week's episode, and just these casting directors who have been doing it for decades, they give perspective and understanding and camaraderie and some real check ourselves moments about what it is that we're doing here. And she speaks with such transparency and camaraderie and gives so much information. And I so appreciate this dialogue that her and I had. So she has been doing several movies. She just did the multi-Oscar nominated movie One Night in Miami. She did Hustle and Flow. She did Friday. She does documentaries. She does television. She does all kinds of things and has had an incredible career. Okay, this episode is brought to you by Greg Saffel at singinglessonslosangeles.com and Carla Zuniga at Carla Zuniga Hair. You can find her on Instagram. That's Carla Zuniga Hair on Instagram. All right, everybody, I love and adore you. I hope you have a real self-tape, and I hope that you book it. Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything. Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have
Kimberly Harden.
First, I'd love for everyone to get to know you and learn all about your very long and beautiful, illustrious career as a casting director. You've been in the business for several decades. Your first casting project was I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, in the early 90s. And tell everybody just a little bit about your casting history.
Yes, I've been doing this for 30 years. Everyone who's listening has probably seen several movies that I've done. Obviously, I have out right now One Night in Miami, which is a lot of critical acclaim, little Oscar nods. Mm-hmm. We don't know. We'll see. Regina King was phenomenal to work with. I've worked with many top-tier directors and producers, including John Singleton. If you're an actor, I'm sure I always suggest part of your homework should always be to learn casting directors. As you want us to learn you. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
actually, if you're watching this, my first suggestion is if you're listening to me and you're listening to casting directors, you should know what they've been doing.
Just go through their list, watch their movies, watch some of their television shows. I went and watched One Night in Miami last night. I watched Blind Spotting. So much independent work that you've done. You've also done television.
Well, I don't really like to go into the depth of it. It's very hard for me to talk about myself.
Yes. So can you tell me a little bit about self-tapes, moving to self-tapes, going from In the Room to now dominantly everything is self-tape and sort of that transition, how you've seen that change maybe over the couple of decades, and then as that's become more accustomed to now the standard of the self-tape, and what sort of doors you see that opening up, if at all?
I feel like it's going to be really interesting. I don't think any of us know on this side how this is all going to come out in the end. As a part of us as casting directors, we definitely feel the difference in how we have to do our job because we can't see actors, face to face. It is a more time-consuming situation of having to watch a lot more self-tapes. And I know that that's an uncomfortableness with some actors. Some actors who actually are live more out of state, they're not LA or New York based. They get accustomed to that self-taping. I would suggest to actors, get accustomed to it. The world is constantly moving forward. I hate technology sometimes. When I started out, we got your picture and resume messenger to us.
Right.
You know what I mean? I kind of went through hand pictures and resumes. I loved that process. I don't have that anymore. Now I've got to look at everything online. It's got to be through technology. So I would strongly suggest to try to conform to that faster than the hope of, okay, when are we getting back in the room? Because we really kind of don't know when that's going to happen because of the safety protocols, not only that has been put forth by the studios and the networks, but by the insurance bonds and for the health and safety of everyone until the entire world is vaccinated. You know what I'm saying? So do we see that happening this year? And then all of a sudden we're going back to the in-person? I don't know if I can say I see that right now.
Right. And in addition to the cost of even a studio having a place for casting directors to hold sessions, that if they discover that they don't have to pay for those expenditures, then what is the likelihood that studios are going to continue or go back to holding offices for casting directors to have their homes once they realize that they could cast something without it? And so we're all agents, actors, casting directors. I like to say we're all sort of like learning our jobs on ice skates now. It's kind of like, oh, is it this? This is how we're doing it now? What are some of the things that you miss about maybe In the Room? And then what are some things that are sort of interesting or exciting about now the self-tape process?
The self-tape process can be a little bit more of an advantage for us because we can give as many people opportunity as we want. But as soon as they come on camera, if they're not right, it cuts my time.
And when you say they're not right, how much of that is like you just sort of can get the essence or the look, maybe the vocal tone, or how much of it is maybe the acting quality isn't quite there?
Many of them are, you know what I mean? Because people don't look like their picture. That's a big thing for us as casting directors. It's like, look like your picture. That's who we want to see, not 20 years later.
Or that glammed up version picture that you have versus what you're going to go in and look like. Now, if you see a self-tape and, sometimes like the first scene, the second scene, and the third scene, just because of writing is so much more exciting often because that's where the drama is really happening. The first scene, we're setting it up, and the second scene, we're getting a little more interesting, and the third scene is where like the action really happens. If somebody is giving sort of a performance that maybe you're not super engaged by in the beginning, do you skip forward to maybe the second scene a little bit or skip forward to the third scene to give it a few more seconds to see if something else catches?
What I do is I go to the scene that's the heaviest where I'm looking for the most reaction from. That's the scene I'm going to start with. So if I give you 3 scenes and I feel like the second scene is the meaty where I want to see, if you're not winning me over by that second scene, I don't need to look at the first scene and the third scene.
I love that. Is it ever helpful, or do actors ever put the meatier scene first? And is that ever something that you're like, okay, great? Because sometimes actors communicate to me that like they're really scared to put the like meaty scene first because they have theater training and they're just how like things go in order. You do the first scene first, and then you do the second scene, then you do the third scene. I know I've had luck, and I know other actors who've had luck putting the best scene first on the tape. And then if the casting director wants to watch the other scenes, they can skip forward. Is that something you've ever seen done? And is that appealing to you, or is it against the rules or anything like that?
I feel like every actor, again, has to find out or figure out or learn, get educated about each casting director and the thing. When I get my self-tapes, if it's through a studio system, they're using Cast It. However they upload it is how it comes to us. So technically, your slate should be coming first. But a lot of times the slate will be the last thing on because it's uploaded from the bottom up. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's a 1, 2, or 3. I can go to your second scene. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? To be able to watch what I have to do. So, but that's just me. Mm-hmm. I can't speak for the casting director how they operate and what they see and what they look for. I think everybody's different. And so that question could mean one thing for me, but it can mean something for somebody else.
How do you handle redirection now that we don't get redirection in the room? I mean, even especially now we're getting fake sides for everything. The more like cool the project is, the more the sides are totally fake. And I very much rely on my understanding of the story so that as an actor, I can help tell the story through my acting. And if I don't have the opportunity to say, hey, and have a conversation or collaboration, or do it and be willing to get an adjustment. A lot of casting directors are saying, bring us 2 takes. I've had some casting directors I've heard say, but make sure they're different takes. And then I've heard other casting directors say, like, just a little bit different. Just give us a little bit of a different option. What's your take on that?
I know for me, I'm seeing more people than I would normally see on projects because of the self-taping. We may not have time to look at 2 takes. Get the dynamics of what the character is. No, you don't get an opportunity to get a redirect from me because unless you're getting a call back, if I'm calling you back, I'm calling you back to the director and producer. They're going to give you the redirect. If they even pick you that they want to see what you've done. You see what I'm saying? It almost kind of takes a step out for us. What we would normally do sometimes is it would be a self-tape and then I would call you back in the room. And then from that call back, then maybe you go to the producers. That other step has been taken out now, at least for me. I can't speak for every other casting director, but for me. Now, if I feel like I see something and I want to give you some notes before I'm bringing you to the producer and director, then that's something else. But I'm not going to necessarily pre-tape you I don't have the time to do that anymore.
And so many projects are casting really fast. If it's a television show that's shooting in 7 days, they definitely don't have time to call you and ask you to retape something with a little bit of a redirection because it's going to be cast by then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah.
I think that's some of the feeling that actors who are accustomed to doing well in the room and have felt like they're in the room booking statistics were really high, and now their self-tapes, they don't feel the statistics are as high. That's a lot of what they're missing is that feedback and collaboration with casting.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's a little bit of catch-22 because I see a ton of talent that don't have that problem.
Exactly.
So to me, it can be voiced as a crutch. The reality of it is you're pursuing a job, your bread and butter, your livelihood, to perform in front of a camera.
Yes, and that is what the self-tape movement is about. It's about catching up. So many of the local, smaller markets, the self-tape has been a part of the system for the last 4 or 5 years as a standard. Mm-hmm. And if you're not catching up to that, then somebody else has that skill ready to go. And they're maybe going to jump to the line a little bit faster. So you have to sort of close that gap a little bit in terms of your experience.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's not just 4 or 5 years just in one location. We cast globally, all around the world, other countries, everywhere around the world. And people are winning the jobs. Why do they feel as though all these British people over here are getting jobs? Do they think that they're flying over here and auditioning in the room? No. They're doing the work. They're getting the dialect down to a perfection, and they're putting themselves on tape.
Absolutely. You've been casting internationally so much for your career.
Yeah.
And really going everywhere to cast all sorts of projects. I've saw that and I really love that perspective. We haven't had anyone really talk about the global perspective, so I love to hear about that.
I hate that a lot of times Americans feel as though they're shortchanged because people from other countries are, getting opportunities they feel as though they're missing out on.
Mm-hmm. They're entitled to.
Entitled to, exactly. My whole feeling is, well, that just tells me you don't understand the business of the business.
Yes.
Okay. And the business is global. You want all eyes on your product. You want to recoup money all around the world, not just domestically. So until you understand that aspect, you're probably going to have to deal with a lot of self-doubt and rejection, and not understand the why of it,
What are some things that you notice that maybe international actors are doing or bringing that gives them some advantage and allows them to be cast in certain roles in a way that, gives them a little bit of an edge?
The main thing is perfecting the American accent.
Isn't that incredible?
And I think it's because, again, we as Americans, we speak English and we feel as though everybody else in the world should be just speaking our language. Mm-hmm. And you go to some of these other countries and these people are speaking 2, 3, 4, 5 different kind of languages. But when you look at the lifestyle also too, you can live in one country, like say in London, and then go and visit other places that are nearby that are only maybe an hour or two away, and you're in another country and they're speaking another language. So I kind of understand that lifestyle, whereas we don't have that here.
A different perspective in that culture than we have.
When I started out, like I said, going through the pictures and resumes, conducting the huge open casting calls where anybody and everybody could come, I may have to see like 800 to 1,000 people in a day lined up. That was a whole nother wave of casting, but it was still limited, of course, to a certain point. Now we have technology, we have the internet, people from all over we can reach. It has definitely opened up the doors for us creatively.
Yes. In terms of practicing self-tapes, what are some things that you would love for actors to practice, experiment with, get comfortable with, so that they can do their best job most consistently for you?
I don't feel like actors need to be making a big deal over this now with the self-tape. I would think there's aspects of it that should be a little easier for them because they're not in front of somebody. Yes, you have an opportunity to be in the character. Dress however you want. I've had people for each scene, they got on a different outfit. And I also kind of feel like every single person that is pursuing being an actor, you may make it and you may not. That's just the bottom line. So how long are you going to pursue that? And through this process now of having to do this next level of pursuing, of getting a job, you may end up finding you're good at or interested in another aspect of the industry. It may be something behind the scenes, maybe being a DP, editing, I don't know. But because you're forced to start doing this, you will develop another skill set that perhaps maybe you can even utilize later on in your career if for whatever reason your acting is not fulfilling the goal that you're trying to reach.
So often what you find out that you've signed up for versus what you've actually signed up for is quite shockingly different. And that the love of the acting versus the love of the career of being an actor can be very different things. And one of my favorite sayings that somebody said to me is, it's not about how bad you want it, it's about how long you want it that bad for.
Yes.
And as we transition from a time when we had callbacks to now, then there were no callbacks. It was all on tape for producers. And then now not even being in the room. Now it's just in your own room into some void that you will never hear anything from most of the time. And that the math, quite simply, is not in your favor. Mathematically, you're not going to book this job. That's just the math. Mm-hmm. So how do you find that passion you're talking about, that love as it continues to morph and shift and change is so much a part of the growth of the art form and the growth of you as an artist within this particular practice and career. you had talked about maybe wearing some different outfits per scenes. And I want to talk about some of these like weird little nitty gritty things because actors are getting really hung up on stuff like that. Like, Audrey, can I wear 2 outfits for one audition? And I'm always saying, like, as though a casting director is going to be like, well, I was going to cast you. That was incredible work. But you wore 2 outfits. So next.
To me, it's too nitpicky on what you guys feel like you can and can't do. To me, just use a little bit more common sense. Mm-hmm. Now, some of the things that we may not allow you to use in an in-room audition, you're by yourself. I don't even see you. So what do I care if you have a cup, if you got a cigarette, whether it's lit, whether you got a gun, whether it's real or a BB gun, whatever. I just want to see that reaction on the screen. I'm not in front of you. Now, I may not have allowed that, but had that in the room.
Right, all those nightmares.
All of them. And literally all of them. Okay. So yeah, but guess what? And I actually even had someone do it with using those same 3 props I just mentioned in a scene, and it worked fine. But they're not in front of me. I don't have a gun in front of me. I don't have to smell a cigarette smoke, but it looked great in their scene.
Yes. Yes.
I feel like this is an opportunity for them to step to that next level of being on screen. Mm-hmm. That's what you guys have right now. Mm-hmm. Utilize it. Don't stay in the fear of it. But wait, nobody's watching me in front of me. That's what I feel like a lot of actors need. Y'all need to get over that. You're in front of a camera, perform.
In most training institutions or theater, and there's a different experience of what that is versus a camera is so much a visual medium. It's just you and the camera, and getting actors to understand like a prop brings something to life. And you didn't bring props into the room because it kind of makes things weird if you're like eating a smelly egg sandwich in the middle of a casting office. And so then teachers are telling actors, no props, don't bring props. When you're acting, don't bring props. But then they haven't understood that there was a reason that rule was in place, and that rule does not apply if the casting director doesn't have to smell your smelly egg sandwich. Yeah. And it doesn't mean always use an egg sandwich, because then it can get sticky.
Right.
When you are working and looking at all these tapes, first, is there any consistent common mistake that you are seeing just like every actor make again and again and again? And then also, is there anything that actors who tend to book consistently or even be in the mix that you're seeing that they're doing consistently?
Well, first of all, this process has only been the entire platform for all of us for a short period of time.
Yes.
So no, I can't say anything consistently because this process is relatively new. I will say that people do need to be more aware of how they look and how they're coming across. If you're just putting yourself on tape and then you're throwing the tape to whomever, your agent, the casting director, whatever, and you haven't looked at it yourself, you don't even know what you're selling. Look at yourself. Is it a clear view? What are you seeing? Whatever you're seeing, that's what we're seeing. Is that what you want us to see? I think a lot of times you guys don't even check your homework, in other words.
I love that.
People don't really do that. And then I also too think that people are not as aware, some people, definitely not everybody, of the effect that it is when you have a reader that either slows you down, is not in the scene with you, jumps your lines, is speaking another language or dialect, is a youth because of the quarantine. So I'm hearing a child's voice where the scene is with an adult. It's that kinds of things. Now, that may or may not have anything to do with the person performing, but to the person listening, it may take them out of the scene.
It can be distracting, or even being too loud or being too quiet if you can't hear what the reader is saying.
Sometimes we can't even hear them or their reader. Again, you would be able to see that if you listened and did your homework on what you're saying.
Check your work, I think, is a really great thing that we can codify for actors in this practice. For a lot of actors, they don't want to look at themselves because it's uncomfortable. And if they use self-tape May simply to just start to watch every single tape that you tape, Watch it and check your work and just see, can you hear the person? Are your readers in check? Do you have readers of all age groups? Do you have readers that help you? Do you have coaches or friends or whoever? Is it ever distracting if the person reading is online, since so many people are having to have like somebody on FaceTime or Zoom read with them? Is that ever a concern or a distraction?
However you best showcase yourself.
Great. There are a lot of creatives who listen to this podcast who are actors, content creators, writers, directors. Is there anything that you would like to say to them in terms of things that they need to think about or remember or consider when creating, pitching, or hiring or staffing their content productions?
There always has to be a jolt before there's change.
Mm.
We're in the middle of a jolt. Everybody feels as though they need to make a change. We're going to see how long that change lasts. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there need to be more people of color in all races and more executive positions to help understand some of these stories they want to tell. Be educational in regards to these different race groups. But then what does that really mean when they're in development, when they're choosing their director, their writer, their cast, their, even down to who's finding their cast.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different thing in the other article. You know what I mean? It's all Black cast, but you got a white casting director.
I read the article that you had done in Variety. You said, and I quote, Black casting directors don't usually get the opportunity to cast all white films the way that white casting directors would be hired to cast an all Black film.
They just have to pay attention to who's out there and give more opportunity. The first thing that they'll always say is, well, we don't know if they can do it. We haven't seen them do it. Well, how does anybody get an opportunity to do anything if we're not giving opportunity? That's been going on for centuries.
Yes.
Do I see it changing in my lifetime? I don't know. I will be turning 60 this year. I do not plan on staying in this industry forever until my wheels fall off. I do have an exit strategy. And quite honestly, I can tell you, I don't know if I see that changing. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's baby steps. Judging from the political climate we just went through in this country, that's why I say that.
Mm-hmm. You said, and I quote, I gave up independent casting for a while and went into the corporate structure to help educate the network about diversity, starting from writing, which then goes to your cast, which then goes into your show. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that process was like when you went into the corporate structure?
Honestly, it was a very tense time in the entertainment industry. There was talk of boycotting. There was 3 coalitions that had started amongst 4 different race groups. No, four different coalitions. For African Americans, Native American, Indian, Asian, and Latinos. And, they wanted to see major change in the industry from film and television. And there was getting ready to be a major boycott. So they wanted to try, all the studios and networks, of course, wanted to try to figure out a way to fix the problem, be more aware of what the issues are. And I just think that through the process of how everything was kind of set up, what was able to kind of be discovered was what kind of shows are being done, whether the comedy or the drama, when it comes to television. Is it that the casting director is just hiring and picking talent from whatever's written on the page? And should that process then start from, okay, maybe you guys need to start looking at other projects where the writing is different, or be more conscious of that writing. Make your characters be a little bit more versatile within that phase to then go to the next phase and the next. And we saw it, we've seen it definitely slowly happen, because I did that, almost 20 years ago. So we have seen it happen, giving opportunity for more race groups with comedy and drama shows, and then as well as within the feature films. They did it with table reads, and then we did these showcases, which now they still continue to this day. The networks do these, showcases, which just helps talent, and sometimes they give development deals, or sometimes they'll just help them get an opportunity to be put on a show. So yeah, that was very helpful, I think.
That's wonderful. So these are the diversity inclusion showcases that these studios created. And so the work that you did was part of creating that process and that avenue for actors and for writers and directors all come together to showcase all of their abilities.
It started with the actors, and then we started with the writers, and now I guess it's branching out into the directors. The overall thing was to just provide more opportunity for those that were not being given opportunities.
I remember going through the halls of one of the networks, and they had all of their famous shows and the posters that you see that line the halls. And there were people there as part of the Diversity Showcase callbacks. And I remember seeing like this all-white cast and then one diverse actor, and then an all-white cast and one diverse actor, and there was something about the visual of it from poster after poster after poster that really made it so clear to me how out of whack that was.
I mean, listen, I feel like we as a world, as a country, especially within this last year, the things that have gone on, from everything from the COVID to the quarantining to the George Floyd and then the Black Lives Matter, we have seen in our world globally how drastically we still are behind and we still need to make changes. It's not anything new. It's just something that I think that we kind of just persevere through life and try not to think about it or accept that it's even real, or we just deal with it. We've been accustomed to learning how to just deal with it, because as much as we fuss and fight and argue and protest and some even want to kill, which is mind-boggling to me, but that energy is out there. I can't even figure it out anymore. I can't even begin to figure it out anymore. And it's such a different wave for talent now and for these storytellers to be doing these projects that we're having to mingle entertainment with education,
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of these projects are about now, especially with the biopics and the history of this and that, it's just that it's a little bit of the twofold of both. And I'm really happy to be able to tell some of those stories. But at the same time, like you said, it's that transition of what's happening in the industry now with, more actors having to put themselves on tape because it's a global thing. So we can't do the in-person. And how do you kind of get past that? Well, I mean, quite honestly, we've been accepting self-tapes for years.
Yes, I saw that in some of the research I had done on you already, that is already has been a big part of it. Seems like your niche as a casting director has been really a on the ground soldier casting director, really sifting through and sorting and finding these hidden gems that don't maybe have representation or didn't go to the conservatory school that had the showcase that then got them the great agents, which is so much a part of when we're talking about representation and inclusion, access to these opportunities, to getting seen. And it seems like you've really had decades of experience of whatever it takes to give people access to get the opportunity to be seen for various stories.
Yeah.
But wait, Kim, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by singinglessonslosangeles.com. That's Greg Saffel at singinglessonslosangeles.com. You guys, body and voice. And shout out to Amber Stonebreaker, you guys. Amber Stonebreaker, who is crushing right now and is on her third self-tape May in a row. And I'm telling you, the fact that she is crushing, it is no coincidence. It's no I wonder how that happened. That she has been doing such hard work, been doing multiple self-tape Mays, and that she is crushing. And she is taking voice lessons with Greg Saffel at singinglessonslosangeles.com. Because it's our body and our voice. And I just watched this I watch it all the time. I rewatch it because I love you, Helen Mirren, masterclass. And Helen is talking about voice. And she was like, acting training, I don't know. I could go either way with it, but definitely voice training. She said, I think the most important thing as an actor is that you get voice training. Straight from the queen herself, Helen Mirren. If you are a singer, you definitely got to go. If you are somebody who is working on your emotional pool, you got to go. He is so wonderful. He is affordable. And I know that so many of you are like, God, I just came out of this pandemic and I don't know what to do. And, I'm feeling like, anxiety and feelings, all these things. Put it on your voice, you guys. Put it on your voice. Go take voice class. I'm telling you, you should all be in therapy and you should all be doing voice class. Do both. Do it. I'm going to actually promise this to you. If you commit to voice class for 6 months, you will come out transformed. I just want you to know you will come out transformed and your work will be transformed for it. If you have a listener question, please call in 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs.
Hi, Audrey. My name is Mikhail. I'm located in Los Angeles. And my question is regarding creating relationships with commercial casting directors, as well as refining casting for commercials. I have commercial and theatrical rep, and I'm currently a SAG must join, but I'm just not seeing the same momentum theatrically as I do commercially, which is funny because I feel like most greener actors are able to book commercials before television. So theatrically, I know where I fit in, and I go out often, and my numbers are good. But commercially, it's just not the same. We've tried adjusting my headshots. I've switched commercial reps a couple times over the past few years. And I'm kind of just at this point where I'm at a loss. And I'm not sure if I'm just not in the pocket type-wise for my age yet, or if maybe there are ways to market myself or create casting relationships with commercial casting directors that are mysterious or unknown to me. So yeah, any thoughts you have would be super, super appreciated. And I'm also doing Self-Tape May right now for the first time, and I am having a blast. So yeah, thanks so much for all you do. Bye.
Hey girl, hey. So I hope that you listened to the last 2 episodes with Arlene Schuster over at ASG Casting. Arlene did an incredible episode. First thing you should do is listen to those 2 episodes if you haven't already. The next thing I just want to really recommend is get into a commercial class. I don't know you. I haven't watched all of your work. I'm not sure why it is that you're able to strike a match theatrically, but not yet commercially. You're right that is usually opposite for most people, but it happens. I have friends who've auditioned for commercials for years and years and years and booked one, booked none. Some actors, for any number of reasons, I think maybe aren't as suited for commercials as they are for theatrical, just like there are certain actors that seem to really be suited for theatrical or for commercial and not theatrical. It goes both ways. So for you, the first thing I would say is take a commercial class. If you haven't done that yet, I think that's first and foremost. A lot of people think that they're doing things correctly in commercial auditions, and they're not. And, a good commercial class is just going to keep you up to date and also get you on the latest trend. I do really like the commercial class over at Camera Left Stage Right Studios. That's what Arlene's ASG studio teaching offshoot is. And the 3 women and 1 gentleman who teach the adult classes over there really are women who are session runners. They've had decades-long careers in commercials. They understand the trends. They understand what's happening now. And that's really the best way to understand, is there something you're doing right? Is there something you're doing wrong? So if you haven't done that, that would absolutely be my first thing. The other thing is you might have a rep situation. I don't know who your reps are. Certain reps are really great at getting you out commercially and certain ones are not. I had a long journey with commercial representation, and at one point I did have a rep at an agency, and then that rep changed agencies and I followed the rep to the new agency, and then my numbers really dropped and I suddenly wasn't going out like very much at all. And then when I quit waiting tables, I decided I really needed to make sure that my commercial auditions were really up. So I sought out new representation, and that's the current people that I'm with. Shout out to everybody over at SBV Talent and Tanya Gonzalez, who many moons ago got me signed up with that incredible group. And SBV Talent, I was auditioning 8 times a week. I kid you not. And I remember thinking, like, what? Is this something that people have been doing? And I had to earn my way there for sure. SBV Talent is an incredible agency, and they rep the top of the top, to be sure. And I had already had years of sort of booking, and less frequently because I wasn't auditioning as frequently. But once I signed with them, I started auditioning and booking crazy. And so that can also be an issue, but the people who really know that are going to be the people teaching these classes. So I really recommend places that are connected to a commercial casting office. There are a few that I really like. The Camera Left Stage Right is great. I also really like the commercial class. That's Allison Horn and Ross Lacey's Studio Arm. They're really great teachers and session runners over there who are informed about the pulse of what's happening now. So that's really my recommendation. There are ways to build relationships with commercial casting directors, but really those people teaching those classes are going to give you the wealth of knowledge that you're looking for. All right. I'm so glad you're doing Self-Tape May. Congratulations. And book it. Take this practice and book it.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
I know you do various kinds of talks and things like that. I've looked at your website, all that sort of stuff on your social media. And I think what you're saying about educating yourself about casting directors is just so important. We're taught about Anton Chekhov, but Anton is dead. He's gone. Like, you studied him in college. Let's learn about who are the creators and creatives right now. And go look at you, Kim, your film history, and watch some of these projects, everyone. Go watch them. If you have not seen One Night in Miami, television, documentary, all of it you've done, just start to familiarize yourself with even your body of work. And in so doing, you'll start to familiarize yourself with actors that maybe aren't on your radar, with directors and writers and creators that maybe aren't on your radar. And it's just sort of giving everyone a little more context. And that's just a very, I don't want to say easy, but it's simple. Pick somebody and get familiar.
What the world has come to, I feel, with a lot of this new age generation is they just want everything to be easier for them. They want everything to just be more handed to them. They don't want to do the work. It's just like they want the answer to what they think is going to get them the thing, the job, It's just like, but it doesn't work like that. And I think that sometimes they don't want to believe that. They feel as though they're different or they're special or it's not going to be that way for them. And, I'm not going to try to talk anybody into understanding what I have seen and lived, for years and years. It's just like, okay, guess what? You go through the ride.
You'll see.
And let's get that ride in, because it's a roller coaster ride,
I think people are being lied to about what's important, because what keeps being sold to us is our acting technique. Like, become better actors. So everyone's in all these acting classes forever, but they're not even acting classes about self-taping. They're acting classes about like theater and scene study, and they've done 6 years of that. And nobody's like, well, maybe go listen to some casting directors who are currently casting and go through their body of work and learn about them. That's just not even being presented to them as a valuable source of information and a valuable part of work, that we've all been sort of sold this bill of goods that like, it's just talent. Like, you're magic, kid. You're so talented.
Yeah. And to me, I always say to actors is just like, really dig deep inside your soul and your spirit and ask yourself why you have such a drive and ambition to perform for your livelihood, your living. Because I think it's a more deep rooted than a lot of people take a look at. The need of a self-fulfillment of attention. And so many people, because they need that attention from one reason or another, maybe they were told throughout their childhood, oh my God, you're so cute. That means nothing to me. You know what I mean? Or, oh, I used to play all the time when I was young. I would dress up. And yeah, that's called playing. I need a depth reason of why you are willing to sacrifice so profoundly for so long to be adamant that this is the only thing in the entire world that you want to do. It gets aggravating for me sometimes because it's such a deep-rooted need for so many people pursuing this field. And I could say a good 90% of people that pursue this industry may or may not even make it or be satisfied to the level that they want to make it. Mm-hmm. And what does that do for their own psyche?
Yeah, I always feel like a lot of people sign up for acting when they really needed to sign up for therapy. Acting got them to feel, to express, to emote, and also to be seen. And they fell in love with that affirmation and didn't understand that the career pursuit is quite different. It really, truly is for people who've been in this industry for 10, 20, 30 years, understand it is a give. It's a consistent give, and it doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't. And I never know how to explain that to anybody because I've gone through my own trials and tribulations over the years. You know what I mean? Everybody thinks it's just them. That's the other thing too about being an actor is that, you know, you end up sacrificing so much of your life in pursuit of being liked. Mm-hmm. Just look at life just like that. You spend your entire life trying to get this job. Like me. Pay attention to me. What am I doing wrong? Fix it. Tell me how I can be the chosen one. Okay, meanwhile, how are you living day by day, week by week? Where's your base that gives you the strength to then develop this character and perform? Where's your foundation? Where's your family? Do you have one? And I'm not talking about brother and sister. I'm talking about, have you gotten married? Do you have any kids? Like life goes on. And actors can become so self-absorbed that nothing else in the world matters to them. And they look up 20 years later and they're bitter. And then they wonder why. And well, my life is, you know, moving so fast. What have I accomplished? What have I done? Mm-hmm. Do you have children? Do you not? And also too, then that balance of then when you do have kids, how do you find that balance to be able to still have your career? I mean, it's such a drastic difference. And we see that in a lot of the documentaries that are done now. I think it was told so beautifully by Jane Fonda when she did her thing and she talked about her dad and what her life was like. Back in those days and that kind of glamour of Hollywood, yeah, movie stars have children. They weren't around for their children. So now how is that child? What happens with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's something I see so much with actors who decide to become parents because they want full lives and that's a dream for them. And the realities of managing time, energy, and money and a business that doesn't care that you want to spend time with your children.
Yes. Yes.
Doesn't care that you have children in school or little children that need to be breastfed. And that you are called to set suddenly to go shoot in Vancouver and you're going to be shooting 1 week, but oops, actually, congratulations, you're in 3 more episodes. You're here for another 4 months.
Yep. All of that.
And
and so with that type of sacrifice and commitment, everything else gets tossed to the side.
Yeah. And my mission so much is to have these conversations so that people aren't blindsided by the career path of deciding to be an actor, really getting actors to understand what they've actually signed up for as a lifestyle for the rest of their life. Because you can be an actor in any way, shape, or form, but what kind of lifestyle do you want in addition to being an actor?
Yeah. And that, I think, especially for a lot of the younger ones, you know, they're just so lost. I purposely sacrificed marriage and children for my career, but I knew that. I didn't have a problem with that. I knew my ramifications of if I was going to have a family, what that needed to look like. Otherwise, I was good, you know?
Yes.
They have to be on their own journey to figure out that aspect of their life.
Yes. And again, I think because as a whole in the industry, the sell of it is its magic, that we've done a real disservice by not being honest about what it really looks like. And I think about the actors I know who are 10, 15, 20 years older than me, and I wonder why they didn't tell me. I mean, I would think I was 32, 33 before I realized that there were people who were actors forever that never got famous. And it just hadn't occurred to me. I thought, like, you're in the industry, and then one day you're famous or you're done. But the fact that there were actors, most of them, who reach whatever decade and they're booking their commercials, they book maybe a guest star here, they get a recurring there, and that is a reality. I just honestly had no idea that was a thing. And I'm hopeful that we can continue transparency and information so that people can start making informed choices about their life and how acting fits into that, or casting, or any of it.
Yeah. I call that the difference between just wanting to be a good actor and a thespian and wanting to be a star. Because nobody going into this should feel as though, oh, you just start acting and then you become famous. That shouldn't even be a thought. You shouldn't be acting to be famous. That's wanting to be a movie star. And it's a difference because every single person that wants to be an actor should start off doing theater. They should be doing theater. Quite honestly, you should be satisfied just doing theater if you really just enjoy acting. Okay. So to jump from the theater, and then if you want to go to film and television, I understand that as well too. It's a bonus. It's a godsend. It's a gift if you get to the level of being in demand. But what a lot of people I feel as though do not realize is when you do reach that plateau, your life drastically changes, and not necessarily for the best. More fame and more money does not necessarily make you happy or a better person.
No, and that's also, from my perspective, is a learning curve that I'm trying to get out ahead of for people, is help them see, like, that didn't solve any of my friends' problems. That they were the same person before the series as they were with the series, and they're the same person before the Emmy as after the Emmy. It's just, as you're saying, more in demand. And then a lot of fear and a lot of pressure that goes along with the expectation of that demand. And how they handle that is unique and individual to all of them. And it doesn't last usually. It might have a 10-year wave. It might have a 15-year wave. It may come back for another wave. And those are champagne problems, but there's just not a ton of transparency about what that really looks like, because the sell is the red carpet. The sell is the jewels. And I've told people, I said, I've been on the Emmy carpet and I know all those people and nobody could pay their rent. Everyone was broke already. The money from the series was done and all the jewels and all the dress and all of it was lended to them. And again, not for free. They had to pay their stylist and pay their publicist. So it was like the Emmys cost you $3,000 to $10,000 to attend, and you were invited. And you're like a walking commercial for all the things that you are there representing and wearing and all of that. And then that's like, well, if it's all a commercial, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's hard to explain that.
Well, you know why it's hard to explain? Because people need the attention.
Mm-hmm.
We're back to that.
You're
You
so
see what I'm
right.
saying? We're back to the, look at me. Look at me.
Mm-hmm.
The ones people that are more grounded actually are the ones that shy away from all of that.
Well, because they know it's noise.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
exhausting.
Yeah.
I remember I went to a Netflix after party and I was there with my friend actors and I had gotten an audition that night. And I turned to my publicist and I said, hey, I got to go. I just got an audition. And she looked at me like I was crazy, like I was a crazy person for going. And I turned to my friends, other working actors, and I said, so good to see you. Got to go. I got an audition. And the actors are like, go get it. Go do it. Go make it happen. And I had to explain to my publicist at the time, this is all to get that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is not for this. This is so that it brings me more of that. So I'm going to go do that. But it's about the more work. And the actors that arrive at that place all understand that. But it does start to understand of like, wow, why am I spending $1,000 to look incredible at this party to be tired so that you can sell how cool your studio is? Because we're all here. It's a very interesting man behind the curtain discovery.
And you can't avoid that step once you kind of go in. If you're going to go for it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you get there and it's just like, okay, well, I'm sorry. That's what you said you wanted. Like, what?
I know. And you're like, but I didn't know it was this. Yeah, exactly.
You know, I enjoy what I do behind the scenes. I'm behind the scenes for a reason. I enjoy being behind the scenes. I never want to be in front of the camera. I'm appreciative of all the acclamated One Night for One Night. I'm so proud of it. I'm honored to work with Regina finally.
Yes.
We've been working together for a minute. I am, but I'm not one that very easily welcomes all that attention. I think that there's an aspect to actors that some of them are very outgoing and and then some of them can be very shy, actually very shy. And
many of them.
And be very difficult to kind of talk about. They just get into their characters. That's their way of being able to release. They do it through a character. And when they're not in that character, they're like, whoa. And I understand that, you know, that's a little bit more of a balanced life too, as opposed to the person that's always got to be on and always got to be up and always got to be look, and what are we doing next? And ooh, take my picture and ooh, this, you know, that's a lot of energy.
But wait, Kim, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Carla Zuniga Hair. That's Carla Zuniga Hair on Instagram. She's amazing. So it is time to come out of that pandemic and leave your quarantine hair behind you. I'm getting my haircut tomorrow. I'm so excited. Carla is back from maternity leave, and I could not be more enthusiastic about it. You know, sometimes you really need somebody who can cut your hair and do skillful things with it, make it precise, give you a haircut that can do maybe a couple of things. Sometimes for my casting, I really want to look like as sad as possible. And sometimes for my casting, I want to look a little bit more high end. And sometimes for my casting, I want to look like a upper middle class real estate agent. So those are all the worlds that I'm trying to hit with one fabulous haircut. And I really rely on Carla to come in and do that work for me and help me just get a haircut that can do a lot of things. And also, not for nothing, but like my hair looks fabulous just like walking out of the shower because she's really great. So if you are a person who has been skimping on the haircut and you are worried that maybe you really need to be investing in something, or maybe you're going to do a dramatic change and you want somebody that you can trust, or maybe the person that's been cutting your hair, you're like, you know what, they're just not doing a consistent job. I'm here to tell you Carla is amazing and she is so consistent. So go see her, Carla Zuniga Hair. She is affordable, she is fabulous, and I love her.
Hi, Audrey. Well, first off, just thank you for everything so far with the podcast. I've been listening to it forever and it's helped me so much. I'm obviously a foreign actor, but I'm based in New York, and yeah, your podcast has just been amazing for helping me learn how the ropes are, if that's the right phrase, in America. Anyway, my question is, really, how do you know when your self-tape is being used by your agents? I know like certain agencies get like a handful of slots and they send it out to more clients and they have slots and they choose the best. How often does that happen? And then if you upload a self-tape, how do you know if it's being used? Because, for example, I use Vimeo and sometimes I can see it's been downloaded, sometimes I can see it's been viewed, and then other times it definitely hasn't been. And I'm like, did anyone watch this? Anyway, so I was just wondering if you could let me know how to gauge analytics around self-tapes. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm so glad that you submitted this question. It's so good. It's something that a lot of people are experiencing and they're feeling frustrated. I get a download when I send a WeTransfer and then I didn't get a notification that says it had been downloaded, or I sent a Vimeo link and then I see that it's not been downloaded or nobody's watched it, and I'm getting like a feedback that there's nothing that's happened. So I went on Clubhouse and I took too much of Michael Toe's Clubhouse time on the business side of acting. So thanks everyone who allowed me to really fight for some answers for you. I really appreciate it. And I got some feedback from some casting directors, from agents, from all kinds of people regarding what may or may not happen and some things that are sort of reasonable. So the first thing I want you to know is casting directors themselves are definitely experiencing their directors are sending Vimeo links, and the casting directors are like, giving notes, and the director is calling them and saying, did you watch the thing that I sent you? They're like, yeah, absolutely. I gave you notes. They're like, oh, because on Vimeo, it's saying that nobody has watched it. So that's happening to everyone. And when we're actors, we're not sort of watching, we're not getting a bunch of things that are Vimeo links to sort of see that that's happening as a person on the receiving end. I do want to affirm for you that that is a thing. So if you have sent a Vimeo link and you don't see a download or you don't see a watch, or you don't see any of that, that it is still possible that they did watch it and they did download it, and that information and data just isn't coming through on Vimeo. So hopefully that can put everyone a little bit of rest for everybody. Another thing that they said is that, yes, absolutely, some agents aren't sending all the tapes, that some agents are getting 5 tapes from clients and then they're only sending 2 or 3. And I asked whether or not they felt like that was the casting process being done by the agent. They said, a lot of times the agents know that they're sending people to represent them in their best work. And if somebody sends a tape that doesn't have good lighting or doesn't have good sound, or, just the work isn't there, or whatever may be the reason that it doesn't show the agency off in the best light, that they said they appreciate it because it sort of does that first weeding out process for them. So just extra information for you guys in terms of do the best work you can do. It may not even make it to casting now that we've gone full self-tapes, and just know that you don't have the luxury of going in the room anymore and, at least seeing casting and having your work maybe not be up to par, but nobody's really going to know, or nobody's going to really find out because it just sort of stays in that room and maybe they just don't call you back anymore. But now that's just not the case, that the agent is getting the tape, and if they feel like the work isn't showing the agent in the best light, they may never send that forward. So just FYI to you. Another thing is there definitely is, and this is something that nobody on Clubhouse was talking about, but I know that is true, is that, people do, reps sending actors fake auditions is as old as the day is long. Like, that's been happening since we could have the technology to do self-tapes. And sometimes, and I would say probably most of the time, the agents are sending actors tapes that aren't real appointments because they want the actor to put it on tape so that they can pitch that actor. What may happen if your tape isn't being watched is that sometimes maybe the role gets cast. So your agent says, hey, can you put this on tape? And you're like, I got an audition, going to put this on tape. And then you send it, and then it doesn't look like anyone's watched it. And, now that we know the technology is not necessarily reliable in that if nobody watched it, it could be because that role was cast in the time between the agent giving you the self-tape request and the self-tape coming in. In Clubhouse, the casting directors did say that sometimes that does happen, that maybe a role changes. So they send out auditions, the agents send them to you, you take the audition, you put it on tape, the agent sends it over to casting, and casting never watches it because the role has changed and they just don't have the time to send emails to everyone like, thank you so much for sending a tape. That role's completely changed now. We're not going to watch this, but I appreciate the work. Like, that's just not going to happen. So that's another reason. I also think that some agents are having you do self-tapes because they believe that maybe they can get you in, and maybe they want to see what you can do. And if you really impress them, then they will fight to put it forward. And if you send a tape and maybe it's a little bit lackluster and doesn't really solve the role and isn't like, yes, this girl is the role, then maybe that happens. And just everybody just, check and communicate with your representation. If I send a self-tape and I haven't heard back from them of like, oh, received, we'll send it over. If I don't hear that feedback, I do check in with them the next day and I say, hey, just want to make sure that you got that self-tape and that it's been sent over. And it's not because I'm trying to be a jerk. I just know everyone gets overwhelmed, and I just want to make sure that, it's all of our business and we're working together. And for me to just completely leave the work in somebody else's hands is maybe not the way I want to run things. So I have good relationships with my reps, and it's perfectly acceptable because the relationships that I have with them to just email them and say, hey, didn't hear back from you. Just want to make sure you got that tape and want to make sure my email went through and that you received it. And I always get an email back like, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. So just take that into consideration. Communicate with your reps. I know it's a lot of trust right now, but guys, I am talking to commercial session runners, and I am talking to casting directors, and I'm talking to producers and directors, and I don't think we're coming back in the room, you guys. Like, we may be going back in the room, I think like 10% of what we were going in the room for. So I think we all really need to protect our hearts. And it's hard. It's hard, and moving to self-tapes is jarring, and it feels like even less control and even less affirmation. And your agents don't have time to write every single person back and tell them like, great job, or I love this self-tape, or whatever. They have a lot of clients and they got a lot of things going on, and they have lives. And so, they don't have time to write us all back in the way that we want them to. And casting directors, don't have time to give everyone feedback. That's just not what happens. But if you are experiencing that you are sending auditions and it doesn't seem like it was downloaded or watched, first thing to know is that very much may be a technical error that I'm being told from all sorts of people from all sides of the aisles that they have definitely had tapes that they have watched 100%, and somebody has called them and said, hey, it looks like this wasn't watched. And they were like, no, it was watched. I definitely watched it. And also that there may be reasons that don't have to do with like your agent just wants to fuck with you and not watch it, that sometimes maybe the role was cast or they went a different direction. It's changing all the time with these roles. The role was cut, all sorts of things that could be the reason why the internet isn't lying to you and your tape wasn't watched. And it doesn't mean that anyone just wants to like fuck with your time, but like legitimate things are happening in the process of creating and storytelling. That means it wasn't watched, and that would happen all the time. You would go to an audition and people would sit in the room, and while they're sitting in the room, a casting director would come out and say, thanks everyone so much for coming. This role was actually just cut. I appreciate all of you. Go home. And because we're not getting the access to the community and to that sort of hit of having somebody that you've gotten in front of watching you perform, it's a change. It's a change for a lot of us. And so I hope that you're doing your self-tape, May, and I hope you have your tribe that's supporting you, and I hope that you're building a trustful, meaningful, communicative relationship with your representation.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Okay, well, I don't want to take any more of your time, so I want to wrap up with some of the final questions that I have. What is the best part about casting for you?
I'm proud that I may have made a difference in somebody's life.
I love that.
They were entertained for that half hour, whatever it was, TV show or movie. That makes me feel good, but it's a job. I think that for me, because casting directors are not a part of the residual type of income, the way that, others are in the industry, particularly actors and whatnot, and we're just as important artists within the whole art form, but we do not receive residuals from that. It puts a different spin on it for us as casting directors for the longevity towards the end, especially for me at this point in my career. I just enjoy project to project. If I happen to like the story, I want to work with the filmmaker. It's that simple for me. Like I said, I don't even toot my own horn. My family gets on my case all the time because I never even tell them really when when I have a movie coming out. They'll be like, I went to the theater and I saw your name. I'll be like, oh yeah, you know.
Well, I really want to thank you for saying that, because nobody said that on this podcast before about the fact that you don't receive residual income. And I really hope that people hear that. And I would love for that to become a much greater awareness. And in general, I always talk about, I think casting directors are horrifyingly undervalued in this industry. And I've always said that if you get casting right, you've done 90% of the work. The rest can fall into place. So I appreciate that perspective, because no one said that on this podcast before. I think that's really great.
It's just what we've had to come for so long. I mean, we've only been able to have a union to be able to start building a type of a retirement situation for us through our work in the past, maybe like 12 years, maybe 13 years. So I've been a part of that since then, but I've been already doing this for almost 30 years. I can't go back with all that. So now I've got to really try to catch up so that I can retire at a decent age.
Yes.
I know actors may want to act for long, directors or producers, they may, and that's great. I feel fulfilled already in what I've done. And I think that's another reason why a lot of people never want to give this up, because they don't feel fulfilled, or they just still love it enough to kind of keep going because they don't have anything else going on. I do have other things that I do enjoy doing, that I do want to fulfill before it's my time to leave this earth, you know, especially because I didn't have any children. There's other family things that I want to do, you know, with my cousins and other tribal people that have been around me that I do consider family, and enjoy that aspect and slice of life, because I have been blessed in my career. You know, worked on some wonderful projects. It's changed some people's lives. I've done pretty much every genre that I can think of, except for sci-fi, but I think I'm maybe segueing into that as well. You know, I'm blessed.
Yes, wonderful. I love that. What is the hardest part about the casting process for you?
Ooh, it's just getting that right person. Right now, I'm dealing with that on a television show. It's just like finding that diamond in the rough, especially when it's a very difficult character for various reasons. So when your director and producer is like, oh my God, I love them, this is like, yes, thank you. You know, yes.
Yes, I love that. What do you wish somebody had managed to teach you or get you to understand when you were just a wee babe and they said, I want you to come and be an assistant on this movie. I'm going to get you, sucker. What do you wish that somebody had tried to get you to understand?
I think with that particular situation with me getting started, I literally was like in my 20s, and I was coming from working in a talent agency, knowing that I kind of wanted to segue into casting. So when Jackie asked me, after I finished working on a commercial with her, to do a film, that was great. And then I had to prove myself to her on that film. I didn't have any training. Nobody taught me what it meant to be a casting assistant. I had to figure it out as I went. And as a matter of fact, I still feel like life is a big bowl of winging it. Every project, we're all winging it through life. We may have an idea, we may think this, an aha that, but we don't know anything until we go through the process.
Yes.
We're winging it.
Yes, absolutely. I would love for everyone to follow you on Instagram, go on your IMDb, and I really am serious to everyone. If you haven't already, give yourself the assignment for this week, for this month. Go through Kim's IMDb page, start familiarizing yourself with the work that she has done. So many genres, like she said, film, television, documentary, miniseries, all of those things, and familiarize yourself with her work, with the actors that she has discovered and given great careers to, and the directors and the writers and the producers, and then go down the rabbit hole and watch their work and find those people and what they've done, and just get a context for yourself of growing and expanding your understanding of more content and more creators and creatives, and get inspired.
Put beautifully.
Thank you.
Know, I do feel as though when you really pay attention to certain filmmakers, you see what they kind of gravitate to, and then you see who they work with. You know, if you're inspired by a particular director, let's say hypothetically, you know, you love Quentin Tarantino. Okay, great. Look at his work. Look at the type of cast he always kind of puts together in his stories. Who does he work with?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
directors and filmmakers that you like, and then do your homework, see who they work with, then try to get in with them, see what that person does, to see their taste, their style, genres of things that it's doing the work. It's not just like, pick me. Yeah, you gotta kind of do a little digging.
Yeah, I'm such a firm believer in what you focus on expands. And if you're looking to be a part of a certain kind of world and content and genre, then really focusing on who those people are and what those stories are and what those actors bring to the table, you'll just know more. And when you know more, you do better. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know it's valuable. I really appreciate your generosity and sharing today.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we have something super exciting. First of all, we are announcing the winner of the Self-Tape May 2021 challenge. So, woohoo! We love it! And then we have a really incredible episode. I know that we got so many requests about story from last year, so we are doing it again. We are having 2 creators from the CW Room. That's the CW Room. That's Creators Writing Room. And they're going to come on and talk about story. We're going to go through some co-star sides. We're going to go through some guest star sides. We're going to post them for everybody to review as you're doing this. And it's going to be just so amazing. We have Lee Aronson and Jason Kyle. They are the co-creators and co-founders of this incredible thing called the CW Room, and you'll learn more about it next week. I'm really so excited. Special thanks this week to Kimberly Harden. This was an incredible episode. I know that your time is so valuable. Thank you so much for coming and doing this interview. And special shout out, thanks to Erica Bream for getting us in touch. Erica, you are the best. Thank you, ladies. I so value your contribution, Kimberly, and your just generosity of time and information. You, I know, have helped a lot of actors with some perspective and information today, and I am so grateful to you for that. I know your time is valuable, and I really appreciate it. Special thanks this week and every week to Thomas Hank Snodgrass for his incredible work with sound. Thanks, Tommy. You guys, Thomas loves to surf, so if you ever see him out there, just give him a little hang something sign with your hands. Executive producer, Jesse Lumen, my still so handsome husband, getting more handsome every year, I should say. Show music by Ari De Niro, theme song by Aalok Mehta and 108 Hill, and editing by Taylor Martorana. Taylor! Crushing it. All right, everybody. Don't forget your towel.